Hey everyone, and welcome back to Revisit. God, I need to fix that intro. Okay, look, I know I said that I was going to be looking at Arkham City Armored Edition, but the thing is, that was before I started my Twitch playthrough of it. I'll link it down below, but you can go check out all my streams kind of going over the story and also Harley Quinn's Revenge. And also I just did another playthrough of it over on Intensive Treatment, you know, just going over with Swifty, playing it, you know, showing him pretty much for the first time what Arkham City Armored Edition was. So I kind of felt like playing something different, and I think, you know, this should be a more entertaining video. Trust me, Arkham City Armored Edition will get its time of day, and I don't know when that day will be, but it will be at a later date. So, without further ado, let's just dive into it, I guess. So remember when I started this channel by looking at the Arkham games? It's a series that I still hold in such high regard, and I wanted to pay tribute to games that are a huge part of my life. I had intention of covering all bases, and you might recall that from those first two videos, which had some unique ports including the Wii U Armored Edition, and today's subject, the remastered versions for PS4 and Xbox One. When I talked about this the first time, it was just the basic cliff notes I was reading off of, and I only put an hour into each game. I figured it would be appropriate to take a deep dive into what worked, and highlight what didn't. I guess as a first note, we're not going over the story and gameplay and such, just because I think it's better if we focus on what's specific to these versions. As far as how I'm playing these, I'm going in a bit of an interesting direction. For Asylum, it'll be on my Series X, and City will be on the PS5. I'll explain as we go along, but I also want to note that playing this game on original hardware is perfectly fine. That's how I've been playing these for years, and even I'll admit it's kind of unnatural playing them on newer systems. But I thought it'd be fun to experiment with what people say are the best ways to play these remasters. With all that said, let's begin this and see how I feel about these versions 8 years later. My god, has it really been 8 years? Fuck me. So I guess we'll start with the history of this thing. Return to Arkham was developed by Virtuous, who is a company that is mostly known for helping co-develop certain titles. They've worked on such stuff like the PS4 ports of LA Noire and Heavy Rain, plus they were also involved in the Switch port of Destroy All Humans. After being leaked on the internet a month prior, it was officially announced in May of 2016, and let's just say the reaction online was not what WB hoped. I myself, of course, was super excited for this. Just having all the main Arkham games on one system, excluding Arkham Origins, was enough to get me hooked, and I was addicted to my new PS4 when I got it not too long before. Did it look a little strange upon reveal? It did, but this was stuff that would be fixed before its release, right? Right? It was set to be released in July, but a month after its announcement, it got delayed indefinitely. For a while there was some uncertainty about if it would get cancelled, but in September we got a new release date and a side-by-side comparison vid. The game launched on October 18th to favorable reviews, but was packed with some bugs and other issues. I bought it with some birthday money, and I had a huge honeymoon phase, which well... Fun fact, my first playthrough of Asylum Remastered, I beat 100% on Halloween night. It's not useful information, but I still felt like pointing it out anyway. I did some more playthroughs including both games on my old main channel, and not long after, that's when my admiration for this release started to fade away. It went from loving what was done to absolutely detesting what these remasters stood for. It has been quite a bit since I fully played through these, so now it's time to dive into the pool again. Anyway, let's begin this review and talk about a game that is simply titled... Before we get into specifics, I think I should talk about why I decided to play this on my Series X. So shortly after the game launched, a patch was released for the Xbox One, which not only provided bug fixes and the like, but also made the games enhanced for their 1X console. The oddest to come from this was that Asylum in particular received a frame rate that peaked around 45. Why both games weren't just capped at 60 is beyond me, but after messing around with it, it's an improvement for the remaster. Since I've had my PC, playing the games at 60 FPS is nothing new to me, but this is what these remasters should have launched with from the get-go. These consoles are fully capable of doing so, and whoever decided 30 was the cap needs to be fired. Okay, maybe not that severe, but you get my point. On the other hand, the 45 frames per second, while nice, is inconsistent, and you'll be noticing drops quite frequently as you keep playing. So in short, I was always going to get an Xbox for the exclusives, but since I buy Arkham for every platform, this gave me an excuse to do something a little different for the video. I have a problem. Let me show you. I have a problem. I have a fucking problem. And this isn't even getting into the comics that I have, the poster on my wall, the collector's editions I have, and other just small knickknacks I've had over the years. Somebody send help. Really send help. Anyway, let's get into the actual game. I guess the only place to start would be the graphics. We're going to go through this one bit at a time because there are some stuff to say. And I don't want this video too short. Beginning with the environments, they have more detail but don't look much better than the previous generation. They accentuate the grime and age that this asylum has experienced, but in terms of quality, the textures are fine at best and sometimes look worse. It's even more noticeable thanks to the game's high resolution, and this is such a shame. Lighting is not really much better either. It certainly illuminates the prison more than previously, but I could do without the lens flares. I mean, what is this, a J.J. Abrams movie? Getting into the atmosphere, this is the most disappointing change for me personally. In the original, each area had its own personality and things that made you remember visiting them and that make you want to go back later on. Here, all the color has been sucked out and has been replaced with a bland, depressing shell of its former self. Another problem with the aesthetic is that the game is way too bright, which ruins the dark mysteriousness of the asylum. I don't know if this was a consequence of bringing the game to Unreal Engine 4 or if it was an artistic decision, but it's not good. Whatever the case, this is just a bad look, and one of the main reasons I rarely ever come back to these remasters. Now onto the models, which is a roller coaster by itself to go over. As far as the NPCs, they range from looking okay to horrible abominations that need to burn in hell. There's also been some weird changes to some characters, and it's just mind-baffling. Take Killer Croc for example. His jaw has this weird triangular shape, and I don't get it. Also, you have something like Joker having a brighter suit, which... why? But I think it's about time we talk about a certain model. Even with all the changes presented, the most mind-boggling involves the Caped Crusader himself, Batman. I stated previously that it's the best and the worst model in the game, which, for the main cast I still think this, but it was kinda dumb on my part since there's worse models than this one. I guess my hatred for this Batman model clouded my judgment of all the other terrible looking human beings. With that said, this model for Batman has some issues. Like some really big issues. Let's start with something small like the gray pieces on the gloves. This is just strange, and I don't know why they felt the need to change this. Speaking of hands, the knuckle pieces are now this bright metallic silver and it's just off-putting. Not to mention also that his belt looks like it's made of plastic and something you could buy off the store shelves. But the biggest offender of all is... do I even need to say it?
You think this is funny?
In a cosmic sort of way, yes.
Well, Mr. Funny Man, is this how you get your sick kicks?
What? It's just an ordinary crabby... Oh my goodness!
Where do I even start with this? How about the fact that his eyes are tiny as fuck now? It's like Bruce didn't cut the eye holes big enough so he can barely see out of the damn thing. They smoothed out his face to make him look younger, which I guess falls in line with the other games, but it just makes him look more unnatural than anything. The biggest offender by far is his ginormous mouth. Like seriously, what the fuck is that? The ends are almost touching the mask and his lips are Mick Jagger levels of ridiculousness. Pair that up with his barely visible eyes and he looks constipated while also having an allergic reaction from the Botox he was given by the bees attacking his ugly mug. Last time I talked about the fact that I made a rant video a long time ago, but I can't express enough how the changes made here affect this Batman, and that doesn't even do him any favors. I can't even take him seriously anymore, and this is my favorite depiction of Bruce in these games. For people who defend this remaster and say that it looks better than the original, really? This right here. You're defending that. That's what you're defending. Now with all those negative points, I do have some nice things to say about the model. I like the colors a lot. The black is nice and dark, and the gray is the perfect shade where it isn't too dark or light. The textures for the suit are pretty nice too, with the leather looking cowl and durable looking bodysuit. Anyway, let's move on to some of the extras. All the standard stuff you expect is here, including the challenge mode, character bios, and model viewer. All the DLC is accounted for as well, including the previously PlayStation exclusive stuff like the Prey in the Darkness map pack and the Joker. As someone who grew up with only an Xbox, it's so surreal to finally be able to play as the Clown Prince of Crime, and it was cool to learn that it was available not just for PS4 players, but for Xbox fans as well. Also, look at this! Armored Batman actually looks like fucking Batman. His suit is shiny as fuck, but his face isn't a mangled mess, and is just another example of why the face is a terrible decision. WB, what the fuck were you thinking? Anyway, I think I covered what I need to cover for the Asylum remaster, so let's move on to the other game in this package, simply called... Wait, what's it called again? I'm getting this out of the way, but I'm playing the PlayStation 4 version on my PS5. For some odd reason, inserting the disc to install but not allowing it to update allows the game to run at a full 60 FPS. It does have some issues however, like the game stuttering, and I even had it crash on me once. Even with all that, the higher frame rate does the game a service, and this is by far the best way to play the City remaster. You can do the same method on Series X as well, but for some reason my copy doesn't want to install all the way and I can't progress after the steel mill. With that problem, I decided to just say fuck it and boot it up on my PlayStation 5 since I've had better luck of getting this working. So yeah, if you have a disc-based next-gen console, I highly recommend doing this because you will have a better time if you decide to play this version of the game. For all the digital console owners out there, you're basically screwed. Anyway, getting into the actual graphics, this somehow looks worse than the Asylum remaster. Textures are more pixelated than a PS3 game, and the models just look horrendous up close. It's usually characters like Jack Ryder and Vicky Vale that look especially bad, but even the main heroes and villains got a major downgrade compared to their original counterparts. Each model just has something wrong with them. It could be something small like Hugo's beard or Racious skin tone, but then you have something like Two-Face's Burnside or anytime you see Sick Joker, and it's just awful. Some have baffling changes like Harley's face or the entirety of Penguin's head. His neck is too thin and now he's even more of an ugly son of a bitch than Grundy is. There are some changes I do like however, including Catwoman's suit looking more leather and Batman. Well, there's some things to go over. I do like that they tried to keep the black and gray as opposed to the blue, but the black is almost gray and it's incredibly distracting. The suit's also incredibly shiny, and it gets even worse when you take damage over the course of the story. But hey look, his face is how it should be, and not a Lovecraftian nightmare. I'm making this sound like a Spider-Man remaster face situation, which I guess it kinda is. How odd. Thought the Asylum remaster was especially bright? Prepare for it to get even worse here. All the darkness and intrigue is just now gone, and it hurts my eyes after a while. I don't even feel like I'm flying around in the night sky anymore, and for this being a Batman game,
You done fucked up now!
what makes all these graphic problems so apparent is that this game is also sporting a high resolution as well. I'm not complaining about the resolution because I actually like the fact that it makes this game look like a 1080p title, but when given, all the cracks become much more clear and it takes me out of the whole experience. I guess the only thing to really mention is the DLC. All the add-on content is here and accounted for, including the skin pack, challenge maps, Harley Quinn story pack, and additional characters. Catwoman's story missions are still integrated with the main plot, and this is something I wish the remaster changed. I wish I could just do a playthrough without having to switch back to Selina, so having them be optional would have been a nice inclusion. I know it's a huge thing to ask for, but hopefully if they ever decide to remake Arkham City, they consider doing this. Let people be able to do playthroughs with or without the Catwoman missions, so for somebody like me, I can just have a Batman focused run without any trouble. I decided to do a Harley Quinn's Revenge playthrough just for the hell of it, and I don't feel any differently than when I first reviewed the original game. It's a fine time that is cool for just being able to play as Robin, but now it's just uglier. One of the biggest fuck-ups comes from the skin pack. All the bonus outfits, aside from one, well maybe two, have just been completely ruined, and this is so depressing. Not only are most of them just pure shine, but the colors are all fucked too. Didn't like the gray on gray from the default suit? Now any that has black and gray is just that, and they look like shit with both of the Frank Miller suits getting the worst of it. Also with the shiny glow, what was going through their head when they decided to keep that for the full release? They all look like they've been dipped in lube, and it's just gross looking. They have some hyper detailed textures, but even that is messed up too. Just look at Batman Beyond's head compared to the rest of his body.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
The only skin that I can use without throwing up in my mouth is the animated series. It's still cel shaded, which is good, and the black parts of the suit actually look black. Compared to the original version of the BTAS skin, I prefer the blue tint that suit had. Otherwise, I like the look of the Return to Arkham variant. It also gives me new Batman Adventures vibes, and I dig that suit. If I had to pick any others to use, it would probably be the 70s skin, but any others I would tell you to go to hell. Let's finally close the book on this remaster and get into my final thoughts. Actually, you know what? I probably could have done a better take. Batman Return to Arkham is a game that feels solid on the surface, but has a ton of problems when you keep diving deeper. Without a doubt, it's still the two best Arkham games, but my problems start with the graphics. Both games look worse than their respective original counterparts, with examples including the models having weird and almost disgusting changes, and the overall aesthetics just being completely ruined. A few of the only good points I can give this is the resolution being high and crisp, and the improved frame rate being great even though they're through unconventional means. After going through this again, I can say that I don't hate this as much as I used to, but I would not recommend this be your gateway to this franchise. I'd much rather you play this on PS3 and Xbox 360, and if you want the higher frame rate, check them out on PC. Otherwise, if you have the latest game consoles, including the last generation, I would only go for these for a very heavy discount. I guess it helps too that these games are on sale all the time. With that, we bring this video to a close. So with that, I'll never have to talk about Return to Arkham ever again. The next time I revisit an Arkham game, it'll be with Arkham City Armored Edition. I know I blueballed you guys with that update video, but I promise that port will have its time to shine. As for my next actual revisit, well, I have an idea. But until then, I hope you all have a great night, thank you all so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.